happy Halloween. No one showed up in their Superman costumes. Like, this is your one and only day. You could have pulled anything off. So, because it's Halloween, I thought we should do a little trick-or-treating. Anybody up for a little trick-or-treating? Who in here, maybe under the age of 18, is up for making $20 right now? Anyone? Oh, Jackson raised his hands. He should know, Mama, like my kid right here. Who in here, Jackson? Anybody else? Maddie? All right, come on up. Look, I need two of you. Do you even know what you're doing? You do have to sing later, so this does make me a little bit nervous, but come on up. So as a precursor, Kevin and I used to do youth ministries up in Hillsborough for a long time, and my cheap thrill of getting through youth ministries, I love youth, super fun, really, really fun to inflict some gross humor on them often. I was the queen of like gross games. At one point, we had a Happy Meal eating contest, which of course we had 700 kids say yes, that's what they would like to do. Little did they know that when they came up on the stage, we then blended the entire Happy Meal, Coke, cheeseburger, pickles, fries, chocolate milk, all together. I think we actually made some kids puke. So let's play this game. The game is down the little granules of white stuff. Down the hatch. Now this is what I'm going to tell you. One of these contains, don't look, cheater, I see you. She's trying to sniff it. It's a trick or treat. It is a trick or it is a treat. One of them contains about, a fourth of a teaspoon of salt, and one contains a fourth of a teaspoon of sugar. The one who does not make any form of any grimace on your face, so you're gonna dump the whole thing in your mouth. I asked Aaron earlier, how much salt can someone down before it throws them into some kind of death? So neither of us knew, so we're gonna find out. So you're gonna put it on your tongue, and you're gonna just kind of let it sit there and stew, okay? You guys should have known. Aunt Mimi is Maddie has known me since she was little, and this is my kid, so this is awesome that you said yes. Okay, so because you're my kid, I'm gonna let Maddie choose which one she wants. Okay, so she chooses right. Oh, okay. So this is what you can't cheat. You're gonna put it on your tongue. I'm gonna count to 5, and then you're gonna swallow. No faces. It's gotta all go in. Okay? And then we're gonna vote who had the sugar and who had the salt. Don't smell it. Ready? 3, 2, 1, go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, you can swallow it. Who had the salt? Oh, no, you're not supposed to tell him. Okay, so Maddie won because she had the sugar, so $20. Just kidding. Just kidding. Jackson, you get $20 too. All right, trick or treat. Look, we're the lame trick or treaters that you get a bottle of water when you come to our house. Come later and we'll give you like a toothbrush or something as well, you know. Okay. I promise you that's gonna tie in there a little bit, but good job. Well done. I'm really glad that our worship leader got the sugar, because that could have really turned on me, because I need her to sing the song after my message. So she could have gotten really salty really fast. Okay, we are wrapping up our spiritual battle stations message, and we are going to do so at the very end of service. We are going to take communion together as a group. So if you did not, Kevin, can you pick up one of those little communion cups? If you did not get one of those little communion cups, can you just put your hand in the air, because I'd like to take care of that right now. If you do not have a little communion, wow, we did communion. Oh no, right here, we got 2. Okay, I just want to make sure that we have all of that. Okay, so for some people, the idea of being in a spiritual battle maybe is a new concept, like for it to be really applicable to our lives. Sometimes we think that there's like angels and demons, and Tom Hanks has done some really good movies, and there's been some Resident Evil movies. They've just been all right. Halloween is full of angels and demons and everything in between, and I think sometimes we water down that it's real. it is a very, very real thing. We are engaged in spiritual battle. It is very, very real. And the really cool thing about it is that we are not happenstance here on earth. We are not just meandering about without a purpose, without design. And the great creator who in all of his goodness, who created you and I, if you don't believe that, just sit with us for a little bit. You will. You will. Jesus designed you. He created you with great, great purpose. And he even extended that extent of love and creation to impose upon us free will. Now, there are times that I am not in particularly grateful of my free will because my free will does not make wise decisions. Anybody else? Free will, not wise decisions. But that's because Jesus wanted you and I to be in a relationship together. He didn't want to just demand, I created you, you are mine, and you're going to do what I say. Instead, he created us to say, hey, I created you. I love you. I want you to choose me. I want you to want me as much as I want you. And that relationship of free will, that ability to come together and choose God is amazing because this is the truth. God always chooses you. Always. Whether you're sitting at home right now, God chooses you. Whether wherever you were yesterday, this morning, tomorrow, God chooses you. He chooses you. I am chosen. But this is what I think we're sitting and watching. We're watching a world turn on itself. We're watching a world that has been thrown into this crazy frenzy. Anybody else watch it? Anybody else feel it? And I think what it is that we are all, not we all, there is a lot of souls out there that are functioning under stolen identities. I think we are a people that are trying so desperately to figure out who we are, why we are, what we're supposed to be doing. We aren't anchored into Jesus, and so we are functioning under a stolen identity of someone to our right, someone to our left, someone in front of us, someone on a screen, someone somewhere else. We have no idea who we are, what we're supposed to be doing, what we're about, what we're good for, and where we're going. And it sends us into this spin of chasing our tails and lashing out and hiding and crying and trying things out that we never had the business of being a part of. And that is because the enemy's number one goal is to what? Steal, kill, and destroy the purpose that God has for you, the design that he has for you, the truth for you and I to hold on to, that God created me, that God chose me, that God is calling me forward. And the minute the enemy can make us turn our heads one way or the other and second guess that, he's won. And so this morning, as we continue this battle stations ready, this look at spiritual battle, I want to remind each of us that as we say yes to Jesus, we've chose the winning team. Have you ever rewatched one of your favorite sports games ever? Yep, I'm going to bet your favorite sports game that you've ever watched, your team won. If not, we should probably talk about self-inflicted pain and turning that ship around. But what's really fun is for me as a mom, or gosh, my husband loves the San Francisco Giants, or you get to go and rewatch a game that you already know the ending to, and so you can watch every play, the mistakes, the triumphs, even the pitfalls. They're really fun to watch because you know the outcome. Should have done better, but guess what? I know we're going to win. Oh man, they stumbled there, but guess what? I know they're going to turn around and we're going to win. And that's the story that you and I are in. Whether you are stumbled and a little bloody on your knees this morning, or you're feeling pretty victorious, we are all on a winning side of this battle. But that does not make it any easier. It does not make it super simple. The last 2 weeks, Pastor Aaron, shared a lot of phenomenal information. I actually said to him last Sunday after church, I think we need to turn this into like a 12-week class or a 10-week class. There was 10 points that he shared with everyone to be battle stations ready in the spiritual warfare, and just loads and loads of scriptures. So if you were not able to listen to that, Or better yet, just get the printouts of all the scriptures in those 10 points, and that is your devotional life, that's your study life, that is a book ready for you to just dive into and read. I really, really encourage you to do that. Aaron spoke on 10 things. I'm going to speak on one. And this has been burning in my heart for quite a while when we were talking about this. It's something that the Lord is continually challenging me on as well. And we're going to land on one point of battling, one battle station ready. But before we get there, I want us to talk about a good friend named Abraham. Anybody ever read Abraham in the Bible? Father Abraham had many sons. Had many sons, had no? Okay, great. It was my tryout, didn't work. So before Abraham was Abraham, he was Abram, and we're going to lead up to a portion of his life or a family member's life in that. But this is what happened. Abram, God had decided that he is his kid who he's going to just do his whole entire works through. We can trace back the lineage. We know that Abraham is the father of all nations. And he came to Abraham, who was Abram at the time, and he just said, hey, look, you're going to be the father of many nations. And as many of us know, he didn't have any kids, which was wild. But at the time that the promise came, there was still lots of possibilities. There was, he was like, okay, cool. Like, that's where my life is going. My life's trajectory is to become a dad. So, cool. Father of nations, I like that. And so through his faith, God blessed Abram a lot. Like so much so that Abram's nephew Lot, everyone say Lot, important guy in our story, Lot was blessed tremendously because of Abram. So much so that their herds of sheep and goats and cattle didn't have enough land to feed all of their animals on, and so they had to split ways. It wasn't a bad splitting. It was like, dude, this is too much blessing in one area, so you go right and I'll go left, or you go left and I'll go right, so that these blessings can continue to go. It was a good parting of ways. And so what Abram said to his nephew Lot is, hey, you choose. If you want to go right, I'll go left. If you want to go left, you go right? Which cup? This cup, that cup, this cup, that cup. And so Lot decided to go this way, and I will give you a precursor. The way he went is towards Sodom and Gomorrah, which, at the time, poor Lot didn't know what he was walking into. He saw that the river flowed really well into the plains, that it was a really, really good spot to land. It looked really good to the eye. And so Abram said, cool, you take that, and I'll trust Jesus that he's going to be blessing me this way. And so lots of story unfolds, and lots of that happens. And then 3 visitors come to Abram, and most likely the visitors were 2 angels, and the Lord himself showed up to Abram and delivered Abram in his very old age, still full of faith. I mean, not like 43-year-old old with some gray in my hair, but there's some slight possibility. Like, Abram was like old, like old. And these 3 guys showed up, 2 angels and God, and just said, look, your wife is going to have a son. And this is my most favorite thing in there. It's a side note, has nothing to do with the story. But if you look at Genesis 18, we will actually read from the Bible, but Genesis 18, God tells Abraham, like, your wife is going to have a son. And she is like old, like great-great-grandma old, right? And so that's saying to great-great-grandma, hey, guess what? You're going to get pregnant. And what would you do if God told you that? You would laugh, or you would roll your eyes, or you would cry, or I don't know what you would do. But if you need to know how God wants to interact with you, just read Genesis and the story of Abraham through and through, because this is what's so great. So in verse 13 of 18, it says, then the Lord said to Abraham, why did Sarah laugh and say, will I really have a child now that I am old? Is anything too hard for the Lord? I will return to you at the appointed time next year, and Sarah will have a son. And this is what's so funny. The Lord is there, like is there and has spoken this and has said, why did she laugh? And Sarah's response in this, in verse 15, which is so great, Sarah was afraid, so she lied and she said, I didn't laugh. I didn't laugh, which is so comical, right? And then, instead of smiting her and killing her, which God could do for lying, all he said is, yeah, you did. It literally says, but he said, yes, you did laugh. And I love that interaction with the Lord because I think it shows an element of realness that he has with his people that have chosen and we're trying to figure out and we're going to try to walk it out. God hasn't called us to be perfect, but he's also going to call us out when we're lying. How comical. They are there in the tent and she laughed and then he said, why'd you laugh? And she was like, I didn't laugh. And he was like, yeah, honey, you did. And that's the end of the story. That's it. I love those little tidbits of the Lord. Okay, so then where we're going to really pick it up is later on in 18. So Abraham is hanging out with the two angels and God and these three men, and they are looking down at the valley of Sodom and Gomorrah. And the Lord says to the two angels, do you think I should let Abraham know what's about to happen? And they do. They share with Abraham that the story goes, if you have not heard, Sodom and Gomorrah, it ain't a good place. In fact, there are words that then refer to what was occurring in that city. That's where many of the words that we use, I'm going to let you just derive your own from that place. It was not good. It wasn't just kind of not good. It was bad, bad, bad. And so the Lord reveals to Abraham, look, I'm going to wipe this city out. Every living soul, everything in it, I'm going to wipe it out. And this is what Abraham knew. He knew his nephew Lot lived there. He knew that his nephew Lot had chosen the right. And so Abraham, in all of his boldness, and I think part of it is because God allowed himself to come and be a part of Abraham in his tent. They hung out, there was relationship. They were simpatico. They had eaten together. They had joined together. Abram's like, okay, so God's in this relationship with me. And so he's like, okay, well, God, I know that you're God, and I know you have this plan, but what, would you really wipe out all the good people and the bad people in a city just because the city is evil? What if you could find 50 righteous people in a city full of several thousands of people? What then? And the Lord looks at Abraham and says, okay, kid, if we can find 50, I'll spare the city. And so Abraham's like, okay, cool. And then I kind of see him doing this mini draft in his mind, okay, so I know Lot, and I know Lot's wife, and I know, okay, so God, what about 40? What if there's 40 righteous in this city? And so God says, okay, kid, if I can find 40, I won't wipe it out. And so, Abraham's like, whew, really just did a deal with God. And he's kind of thinking about it over, and he's like, ooh, counting it through and kind of second guessing if Tom and Jerry are really that great. And maybe, I haven't really checked in with the Smith family, and I'm not really sure if they're really walking the righteous road. And so he's like, well, what about 20, God? Can we make a deal for 20? Let's just play it safe. How about 20? And the Lord says, okay, Abraham, if you can find 20, then I'll save it. Whew, he's feeling really good. Okay, so we've come from 50. I mean, it's like a car dealership, right? You really want a car. We've got them from 50. We've got them down to 20. And Abraham is really really thinking about this seriously, the righteousness, people that are pursuing Jesus in this city. And righteousness doesn't mean perfection. So don't equate yourself in that lump. But righteousness is the people that are searching for Jesus, that are running after Jesus, that are trying really hard to hear God's heart. And so the last barter of the chapter is Abraham says, okay, how about 10? 10. If there were 10, would you spare the city? And God says, yeah, I will. 10. And I think Abraham was like, okay, who are the sure wins? Because I got to save my family. I got to save, in a verse it says brother, but brother just means relation. I got to save my nephew Lot. And he knew Lot and his wife, and they had a couple daughters, and they had a couple sons. And so he bartered at 10. And I just love that fact, that God allowed Abraham to be a part of it. So then later on in the story, we're going to go through stories really fast, and we're going to bullet through the points. So later on in the story, these three men, the two angels and God, went down to Sodom and Gomorrah. So left Abraham feeling really good that he had really negotiated a good price for the city of Sodom and Gomorrah for his nephew Lot. And they show up at the city, and Lot sees them. Lot sees them and is all of a sudden like, I don't, maybe you're not this neurotic, but like when you are at home and you're in your sweats and you're lounging and you've just decided to not clean your house, and then all of a sudden you hear someone pull up to the front of your house. Anyone ever have that panic? Like, oh Lord, what do I do to cover up the fact that I have been living slothfully on this Saturday, right? And that's what happens to Lot. God and the two angels walk up to the city, and Lot is sitting by the gate, it says, and I can just feel the panic as I read this portion of scripture. And the angels of the Lord and the Lord are like, no, we want to walk into the city. And Lot's like, no. Come to my house over here. Let's go this way quietly, and I'll come and feed you. It'll be fun. We'll have a family game night. We'll keep it contained. And they're saying, no, Lot, we want to see what's going on in the city. We have heard what's been going on. And Lot begs and pleads them. And so they say, okay, we'll come over to your house. Well, guess what? The city came to the house. And the accusations and the things that the city wanted to do with God himself and the two angels is pretty horrific, is ghastly, is cringeworthy, is a great depiction of the city itself. It's not good. And so these angels turn to Lot and tell them, it's time to get out. God literally is going to rain fire down on this city. He cannot stand it anymore. There is not an inkling of righteousness in this city. It cannot be saved. And literally, sulfur and rain are coming down. And so they're about to do this. Lot's like, okay, this is happening, and this is what they say to Lot in the morning. With the coming of the dawn, in verse 15, the angels urge Lot, saying, "Hurry, take your wife and your two daughters who are here." It says earlier in the verses that Lot had tried to go out at night and convince his sons-in-laws to come as well, and they thought he was nuts. They were like, life is good. Everyone loves us here. We're all partaking of the same sins. We're partying it up. Everyone's happy. It's good. It's comfortable. People like us. Why in the world would we leave? And so then Lot finds himself with himself, his wife, and his two daughters. Remember how Abraham had talked from 50 down to 40, down to 20, down to 10? We now are at 4. And so the angels of the Lord urged Lot, saying, "Hurry, take your wife and your two daughters who are here, or you will be swept away when the city is punished." And God, in all of his mercy, it says, when Lot, hesitated, the men grasped his hands and the hands of his wife and of his two daughters and led them safely out of the city, for the Lord was merciful to them. As soon as they brought them out, one of them said, "Flee for your lives. Flee for your lives. Don't look back. Flee to the mountains, or you will be swept away. Flee for your lives. Don't look back. And don't stop anywhere in the plain. Flee to the mountains, or you will be swept away." Before we get to the really cool part of the story, I want us to talk about two little subpoints here before we really talk about the one main battle station ready, and that is this: God is in the business of engaging with his people. You are in a relationship with a God who wants to engage with you. It blows me away that God, who knew how evil the city was, who knew how corrupt and grotesque and and vile the city was, still thought, hey, let's bring Abraham into this conversation. Let's share the plan. Let's share a tidbit. Let's share a part. Let's allow him to be a part of this relationship. God didn't need Abraham to be a part of it, right? God knew they were going to find four. And yet God allowed Abraham to really wrestle with the state of these cities and to be a part of it, to have a conversation, to go about. And then for the angel of the Lord, or the two angels of the Lord and God to come into Lot, and for Lot to be able to converse and try to share dinner and try to hide the sins of the city and be awkward and all of those things. God allowed there to be relationship. God is asking you to be in relationship with him. He doesn't want to make it scary. He's not going to smite you. He's asking you to just be honest. Like, God, that really doesn't seem fair. How about 50? What if you could find 50? And God's like, okay, let's walk this out, kid. Let's do it. Let's be in relationship with that. And man, I am just blown away. You know, he designed us to be in this relationship so much, though, that his redemptive story included his very self coming in the form of Jesus Christ to come be in relationship with you and I. I mean, I didn't get to sit at the table and physically break bread with Jesus, but our people did. Humanity did. Like they physically, I just keep thinking about Abraham and in the tent and God is there with him, and Lot, like the angels and God are grabbing Lot and his children and pulling them out of the city, even as they're kind of like dragging their feet. That is mercy. That is grace. Great precursors for the fact that Jesus was going to come and pull us out of the crud that we had been in. Phenomenal, phenomenal, phenomenal that God would love us so much. And then if you read Psalms, gosh, sometimes Psalms is hard to read because it's really like fruity and fluffy, and it says that there's like harps and flutes, and I don't know, I don't typically read my Bible and pull out my harp and flute. If you do, I would love to watch you do that because I think it would be really entertaining. But the whole book is just this back and forth of the writers writing something and then God responding, and the writers writing and singing and tormenting and praising and God responding. And it is about a relationship that goes back and forth. It is not a one-way street with our relationship with Jesus. The other thing that I really, really love about this portion of Scripture is that it really shows us that God is going to search us out. Lot was in the middle of Sodom and Gomorrah. And we know that he was deemed righteous because God saved him. His heart was after God. Now there's Lot, there's a way to Jesus, and then there's a way like Lot, kind of like this. Lot didn't walk this straight and narrow, but he was full of enough righteousness for Jesus to come after and to save. And I love that the scriptures tell us that they physically grabbed their hands. Like, enough. We're getting out of here. You have endured enough. We are not doing this anymore. God is merciful, but he also does not want you to stay where you're at. Luke 19:10 says, "For the Son of Man has come to seek and to save that which was lost." You and I were lost. God couldn't handle it. Humanity was sitting in the middle of a Sodom and Gomorrah, and God couldn't handle it. So he sent Jesus. If you feel like you are sitting in the middle of Sodom and Gomorrah, God's coming after you. He's merciful. He's not going to leave you there. It's not his way. He's going to seek you out. He doesn't want you there. He sent his son Jesus to come and to seek and to save. That's me, that was lost. He is a great rescuer. My husband decided to pick up a theme when our children were each 3 years old and be deemed a hero. I don't know if you've put this together. He's like, yes, I love when she's talking about me being a hero. He has shared the story of when Macy was 3 years old, we were at a swimming party, and she had little floaties, and our kids loved to swim, but she hadn't learned, how to really swim. And she took the floaties off and went down a slide into the deep end and sank. And my husband literally walked on water and pulled her out. She was in the bottom. Really, really cool. Jackson, when he was 3, we threw him a birthday party, and we had really great friends. It was, I will say, I engaged in the first couple years of my kids' lives. It was like the show off of moms, like who could throw the best birthday party. I mean, it was a little bit out of control. I will 100% fully admit I lost, but man, I put up a good fight for a couple of years. And so we had these friends. I love a good party. It's not my strength. But we did really good when Jackson was 3. We had these friends, and they had this great property, and it's all about who you're friends with, really, if you want to throw a good party. And there was a bounce house and swimming, and there was crab, I think, and it was all this Nemo themed, and it was this really, really cool thing. And my friend had a pony, a cute little miniature blonde. I mean, it really was not that big, but we are not horse people. In fact, I killed a horse once. It's a story for another sermon. I'll just leave it there. But we are not simpatico. And so Jackson was on the back of this horse, and it was not that high, but at that time he was not 6'4", 6'5". He was this little, he was the center of our world, and so he was, walking on this little horse, and I was thinking, I am the mom of the century. Like, look, 3-year-olds, people are having fun, they're eating, my kid's on a horse. And someone happened to have a shawl, and they waved their hand to take a picture in front of this little mini horse, who then all of a sudden decided he was not mini, but he was mighty. And he wasn't having it, and he bucked. Now, when your sweet, adoring 3-year-old little kid is on the back of a bucking horse, it is terrifying. And literally, my husband, in all of his superhuman power, by the grace of God, Jackson went flying, and his hand just went like this and caught him by the back of his pants, I think. And Jackson he was a chunk. So it wasn't like, he is tall and good looking now, but he was robust and round back then. And so this horse bucked, and Kevin just reached and grabbed him before he ever hit the ground. I mean, it was miraculous. It was amazing. It was heroic. But I was thinking this morning just about how God is in the business of rescuing, how ridiculous of a situation we may be in. He's there. If you're getting bucked off the back of a horse, if you're drowning in the bottom of a pool, if you're drowning in the bottom of your finances or in a relationship that's struggling, an identity that doesn't know fully who you are, he's a great rescuer. All right, so this is the story. This is where we're at. The plot has been set, a 30-minute plot for a 10-minute wrap-up. So Lot and his wife and his 2 daughters are being rescued from a city that is vile and needs to be wiped from the planet. It's no good. It's perpetuating and creating and spreading, and it's a disease, and it needed to be taken care of. And so they were saved from that. And do you remember the instructions that the angel said? Flee for your lives, don't look back, and don't stop anywhere in the plain. Flee to the mountains, or you will be swept away. So then we're going to jump ahead to verse 23. And they are running for their lives. I kind of picture it like Armageddon, like when things are, literally fire is raining down from heaven and hitting everything behind them. And the angel of the Lord had said, keep running, don't look back. You're going to be saved. I've got your back. Here we're going. And so this is what happened. By the time that Lot reached Zoar, which is the city they were running to, the sun had risen over the land. Then the Lord rained down burning sulfur on Sodom and Gomorrah from the Lord out of the heavens. Thus he overthrew those cities and the entire plain. Guys, we serve a really cool God. I mean, there needs to be a good dose of fear for a God who can rain down sulfurous fire from heaven, but he also is a great rescuer. Like, man. Thus he overthrew those cities and the entire plain, including all those living in the cities and also the vegetation in the land. In verse 26, one little verse. But Lot's wife looked back, and she became a pillar of salt. Man, I really feel for Lot's wife too, because she doesn't even get a name. But let me tell you, people know. Lot's wife, she looked back. She turned to a pillar of salt. So here we are, battle station's ready. We are in a spiritual warfare. The enemy is after you to kill, steal, and destroy the purpose and design and direction that God has given you. And this is our stance. There's no turning back. Forward facing. I think there are times that we can celebrate what God has brought us from, but for Lot's wife, and as we study in the scriptures and scholars, like, man, that seems like a really, really, really rough lesson to have been learned by Lot's wife. Bam, pillar of salt. Jackson, how did it feel to have salt on your tongue? Like this. That's how it felt. Turning back makes you salty. Looking what God has pulled you out of sometimes makes you salty. And I'll tell you, in this day and age that we live in right now, it's really easy to be tempted at what the world gets to do, at what the world is participating in, at what the ungodly are celebrating, because it looks really fun. It looks comfortable. It probably looks like what we've known. It doesn't look like we are fleeing for our lives across a plain into the unknown, except for the fact that God has said, I'm saving you. I'm saving you. I'm saving you. Run, flee, don't look back. That garbage is not for you. It's not. The minute you look back and you ponder and you wonder and you think, oh, you aren't looking where Jesus is telling you to look. God has redeemed you. He has sought you out. He has saved you. He has pulled you from that and is asking you to go straight forward. Where you are today is where God has you. Where you were yesterday is not where he has you anymore. It isn't. Where he has me today is where he has me. And I think one of the greatest deceptions that I have fallen prey to, I think the majority of us have fallen prey to in this pandemic, is we say this term all the time, I just want things to get back to normal. We're in this posture of waiting for the clock to turn back a year and a half to normal. And the Lord's saying, no. Your bitterness, your enragedness, the salty look on your face is because you're looking for something that is already dead. I have you here today. Look in my eyes, look in my word, look at the people around you. I am doing a new thing. A new thing. And yet our flesh longs for the familiar. Because we know it. We know what it feels like, even if it wasn't even that great, right? I mean, let's look at the Egyptians the Israelites when they were saved from Egypt and they complained and they were finally saved and they were set free. And then all of a sudden they were like, well, maybe we should go back because at least then we knew what the beatings felt like. And I think there was some water and sometimes we got food. And how often do we posture ourselves like that when the Lord is saying, kid, look up. I'm doing a new thing. Don't turn back. Don't want what was. Believe in what I have spoken. I have spoken life. I have spoken purpose. I have spoken design into your lives, and I am calling you forward. Don't take the bait of Satan from John 10:10, because that's what's happening. He wants to steal, kill, and destroy that very thing that I just said, that God is going to do a new thing today. What the enemy wants to say is, yesterday was way better. A year ago was way better. 5 years ago was way better. If we could just go back 5 years, oh man, that would be great. No, it wouldn't. This is the day of the Lord. This is the day of the Lord. And he is doing a new thing. We've been brought from death to life. Literally. We are the sons and daughters of the Most High God. I mean, that washes over me. I am the daughter of the Most High God, who never once in his word says, I want good things for you except for the days that I'm in a bad mood and then I'm not going to. Never once. His love endures. It's infinite. His mercies are new. He wants life. He wants prosperity for you and I. He wants freedom. And our flesh wants sin. In Luke 17:28 through 33, and I'm not going to read it, but Jesus brings up the story of Lot and his wife in the New Testament. And he's talking about the fact like, hey, look, I know the times we're living in. I know what it feels like to live in Sodom and Gomorrah. Learn from Lot and his wife. The day of the Lord is coming. I'm coming, kids. Don't lose heart. Don't lose faith. Stay strong. I'm at work. I'm doing a new thing. And in Galatians 5:7 through 10, yesterday I was flying home from work. I was in San Antonio. Anybody from San Antonio? Anyone ever been there? It's a really cool city. I highly, it was great. I was there for 48 hours. Ate some good barbecue. But in Galatians 5:7 through 10, do we have that? Oh, we do here. So this is what I love. He's saying, oh man, you are running a good race, meaning our walk with Jesus. And when I was reading this yesterday on the plane coming home, I read these words and I thought, the Lord is saying, hey, you are running a good race. And then it says, who cut in on you to keep you from obeying the truth? That kind of persuasion does not come from the one who calls you. And it says a little yeast works through the whole batch of dough. And just as, yeast, you need it to rise. And when the Bible talks about yeast, typically it's talking about sin. It's talking about deception. That if you allow just a little bit of sin, a little bit of deception, a little bit of anything that isn't about Jesus into it, it's going to work through the whole thing and make you rise up. Okay? I am confident in the Lord. So I am confident, not that you, I love this, I am confident in the Lord that you will take no other view. The one who's throwing you into confusion, whoever that may be, will have to pay the penalty. I am confident in the Lord that you and I are going to run the good race. The last time I checked, you didn't win a race by turning around and running the opposite direction. I'm confident that you will run your race. And not because you're supposed to, and not because the Bible says, and not because this woman named Emily up here says you should, but because God is for you and his ways are infinitely better than anything else. There is no turning back. Don't turn back. The conquistador, isn't that a great word to say? Cortez, which many of you know, in 1519, wanted to go, and it's not a great story, so it's not someone to be celebrated, but he wanted to go and conquer the Aztecs. And he didn't get the okay from his commanding in chief, but you know what, he did it anyway. But there's a great leadership principle to learn in all of this and a great lifelong lesson to learn in all of this. And so he sailed about 300 men, 11 ships to go and conquer the Aztecs. And so they pulled up on shore into the very wild unknown, really scary, not sure what they were doing, didn't have the backing of anything. I think he definitely sensed the fear of his men. And so as they embarked and went off, he then burned the ships at the shore. 10 of the 11, at least he made them to where they couldn't sail. But the burning of the ships is where that originates from. And it essentially was telling the men, like, we're doing this. There is no turning back because there's nothing to turn back to. And as I was reading the story of Lot and praying over this message, I just kept thinking, God, I think there are some ships in our own lives that we need to burn. Man, and sometimes it feels like I burned those ships a couple times. And God's mercies are new. And he's saying, okay, kid, let's light flame to that again. Let's not turn back to that. Let's not look back at that. As we are pursuing Jesus, as we are moving forward, as we are taking his word and his truth and his promises in our lives, what are the things that are causing you to turn around? What are the things that are causing you to get salty? And you know what I mean by the term salty? This. Does your heart ever feel that way? If you're not for people, you're probably salty. What does God need to burn up in your life? So there's three things. We're going to do communion right here. And before we kind of go into that, we're going to do it on an individual basis. And the cup, Kev, can you hand me one of those? There's a little tiny, what we'll call a cracker. I don't even really know what it is. And some juice. And when we take communion, it is just for us to pause and remember what Jesus did. That he came to seek and to save what was lost. He came to seek and to save me and you. And his body was broken and his blood was poured out to save you and I. We don't have to die on that cross. We don't have to pay that penalty. All we have to do is say yes to Jesus. And so in a minute, I want us to do this individually as the worship team prays or sings over us. But there are three aspects that maybe we need to really kind of address in our lives this morning. And the first is this: God is ready to engage with you and to share with you his plans. Are you listening? Are you pursuing? Are you trying to hear? Are you trying to engage? I mean, look at Abraham. He bartered with God, and God allowed it. It's really a silly story. 50, 40, 20, 10. And God allowed it. So maybe you need to do a little bartering. Maybe you need to do a little like, God, I don't understand. Maybe you need to do a little surrendering. Honest speech. He's God. He can take it. Are you engaging in his plan? That also looks like reading his word. Start in Genesis. It's really juicy. It's really interesting. I mean, fire, pillars of salt, great-great-grandmas having babies. I mean, way better than any TV show that's out there. Engage with him. And I'm also going to throw this out there. Because I haven't been at the men, you should definitely gather with the men. But the women have been getting together on Wednesday nights. I'm going to be a little bit emotional about it. It's life-giving to break bread and share life with someone. And I guarantee it is super simple. We have a potluck, we have dinner, we have 3 questions. couple weeks ago, the questions were like, what was the favorite job you ever had? What was your favorite, or what did you get in trouble for the most? I mean, like just sharing life with one another. It helps you start to see God's plan in your life. Some of us may feel like we're sitting in the middle of our own Sodom and Gomorrah. Gosh, I feel like it. There are times that I'm looking around and I'm thinking, okay, God, how much more? What are you doing? Just know that God sees you. He hears you. And he's got a really good rescue plan. A really good rescue plan. If you have never listened to the song by Lauren Daigle, Rescue, go home and download it. Listen to it. It is phenomenal, and it's so true. God hears our SOSs. God hears that we can't do this anymore. And he says, I'm coming, kid. I got a plan. Rescue by Lauren Daigle. It's so good. And then ultimately, what we've left behind, what we're walking out of today, what is God calling you towards? It is a one-way street, and you need to stop turning around. As comforting as it is, God is not calling you to turn around. It's not Jesus. He's not asking you to look back. He's asking you to look forward. So what are those elements? What ships do you need to burn? What thoughts do you need to surrender? What past normals have you idolized that God is wanting you to burn up? So the worship team is going to sing a song. And as they sing it over us and as you take your communion, I just want you to take note of your life. And the really cool thing of what's occurring in here is the Holy Spirit is so good at prompting things in your own heart. It's not mysterious. You don't have to make it difficult. You don't have to make it hard. If someone heard something in the message that you didn't, you don't think like, okay, does that mean I'm not a good Christian? No, it just means that God's addressing something else in your life. So whatever God is burning in your heart right now, whatever you may have been convicted by or encouraged by, pray into that. Ask God, okay, show me more. I'm an open vessel. God, I want your goodness in my life. And then as you take communion, as you take the bread and as you drink the juice, thank God that he has already made a plan. As those elements touch your tongue and pass by your lips, it's a reminder that the plan and the victory has already been won. It's just time for us to get on the same page with him. It's really not hard. Just agree with him. Allow him to speak truth. Allow him to be a part of the plan. And maybe even your great awakening to living life anew this morning. Jesus, we come before you, and God, in the only way that you can do, not only do you rescue us, like that picture of Jackson flying off the back of the horse, but you don't just leave us suspended in the air, but God, I feel that you are planting feet on the ground this morning. That you are bringing peace, that you are bringing direction, that you are bringing clarity, that you are allowing us to let go and believe that today is a new day and you have something new and even better than before. God, as we surrender willfully, gleefully, happily, into knowing that you love us, that you are for us, that you have called us. Would we be open and would we be honest? Would our faith increase? And would we know you more today?